Welcome to another edition of the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I'm back at Fan Expo 2017, chatting with Stephen Andrews, lead editor at Toronto Comics Anthology. Stephen works in the casual games industry and has led the Toronto Comics Anthology since it began in 2014. In this interview, Stephen provides some background about Toronto Comics Anthology while introducing the latest publication, Toronto Comics Young at Heart. Stephen also chats about the Toronto comic book scene. Before I go further, I encourage you to like this podcast on iTunes and definitely check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website. Like us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and discover a lot more information about Canadian comic book creators and supporters. And now, here's my chat with Stephen Andrews from Toronto Comics Anthology.
Every year we get a whole bunch of artists and writers together, and we make short comics all inspired by Toronto, all from local artists trying to celebrate the things that make Toronto great. A lot of times when you see Toronto in media, it's always Chicago, or New York, or Detroit, but not quite actually the city. And so we wanted to make artwork that reflected the place we're actually from. And so this year we just launched a comic called Young at Heart, which is our first full-color anthology. It's about 200 pages of gorgeous local comics about how when the TTC breaks down, when they say there's signal problems, it's actually a monster incursion, and they have to send a TTC strike team to go resolve it quickly. And how, in the near future, the only way to afford a one-bedroom condo is to fight to the death in a giant robot. So that's a true story, of course. But yeah, we try to kind of let our artists and writers run wild and share stories that are inspired by Toronto. Because it's a huge city from a million different styles, a million different cultures, and it's just fantastic to see the diversity that's kind of reflected in the artwork. And we're very excited about this project. We're in chapters in Indigo across the GTA region, as well as in Page and Panel, Silver Snail, all the usual comic book haunts. We started the Toronto Comics Anthology in 2014. It was myself, Mikey something is his pseudonym, and Nelson DeRocha. And the three of us were in Ty Templeton's writing classes. Ty Templeton is a local artist and writer who works with Kevin Smith in the Green Hornet. He does Batman 66. And he teaches from a little classroom in Spadina. And we were in his class, we were learning how to make comics, but we figured we wouldn't really understand it until we did it. And so we put together a 100-page anthology, just from the other students in his class. We had a lot of fun doing it, and so we made it more of an open call to the general community, saying, hey, do you like comics? Do you live in Toronto? Do you have experience in Toronto? Tell us a story. And we've just had a lot of fun with that. It's kept us going through 4 books now. Young at Heart is the latest in that series. And it's been a really good time. We're actually already working on our 5th one. Scripts are, in fact, due today.
Can you tell us a little what's the timing? I know you're talking about scripts coming in, but what's your proposed plan for publication for that?
Every Toronto Comics Anthology book is done on a strict 9-month development cycle. We have to start in August, scripts are due in September, and then we just rapidly progress things all the way down into May. Because May is when TCAF happens. And those who are not familiar with the Toronto Comics Arts Festival, it's probably the biggest indie comics show in Canada, certainly North America probably. It's absolutely phenomenal. I recommend it. It's a free show, so you just show up to the Toronto Reference Library, come in and discover comics from Greece, Japan, France, stuff you'll never see at any other show. And so because we always try to launch at the same time as TCAF, we know we have a very strict deadline, that we have to get things done by then. We have to allow 6 weeks to the printer to get the books back to us. And so we have very strict and quick deadlines. And I find that having a firm deadline actually really helps motivate people. It gets people to push things in on time.
Well, what would you say about the Toronto comic art scene?
The thing that I feel makes the Toronto comic arts community unique is how friendly and supportive everybody is here. Honestly, when we started out, we had no idea what we were doing. We really kind of fumbled in the dark. And we figured it out only thanks to the help of a lot of the established creators in the city who went out of their way to help endorse us, to write forwards for us. I mean, we have Jeff Lemire doing the forward for us, and we're a bunch of nobodies. Hey, how does he even know who we are? But it's been really exciting to see these more established creators really going out of their way to help introduce newcomers. And I feel like in some cities, comics can be very competitive. There's only a few folks who can really make it. And in the Toronto comic scene, there's just so many folks nearby, and there's just this feeling of like a camaraderie in the trenches against, capitalism. Our next big project is an anthology called Wayward Sisters, which is a woman's horror anthology led by Alison O'Toole. That's coming to Kickstarter in October, and it'll be on shelves in January. It's going to be 200 pages of gorgeous color comics. I'm really excited to see. It's about women being monstrous, being awful in the ways that they're not normally allowed to be in fiction.
Thanks to Stephen for talking with me. It was a great interview, and hopefully you learned a little bit more about the Toronto Comics Anthology and what they've got going on. If you want to discover more, you can find them at TOCOMIX.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to subscribe, like, and comment on the podcast. And again, please send your feedback to truenorthcountrycomics@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and hope you come back soon for another episode. Bye for now.